All right, let's go to this next story. This is Thomas Massie on the Rules Committee. By the way, he had a very good video 2 weeks ago. I think we shared on this show. But this is him talking about the continuing resolutions. Now, remember, this show actually launched in January of 2023. Our first material was the ousting of Kevin McCarthy. I mean, we covered all those first 3 or 4 days, right, Jesse? Mm-hmm. And then I think eventually it was the next week. How did that go down? It took a week or so before McCarthy was ousted?
Yeah, that was, I can't remember exactly. Forgetting. 4 days or something, yeah.
Well, that's how we started on that. And we loved it at the time. Of course, we didn't know what that yielded. Then you get this character that really no one knew much about, Mike Johnson. And he comes in as kind of an unknown dude, right? And there's maybe some hope. He ends up all right. And it seemed pretty early on he was corrupted by the establishment. I don't even want to call it the Republican establishment, just the establishment in Washington, D.C., to the point where after all this mess, we still can't get 12 appropriation bills. They're passing continuing resolutions, continuing to kick the can down the road. It's been about 12 years straight. I mean, ever since I've really been covering the fiscal mess in Washington, D.C. Let's go to this tweet. This is shared on my page at Jay Duesenberg if you want to see it yourself. This is Thomas Massie on the Rules Committee.
Kentucky's recognized for questions.
Well, here we are. This is where I said we were going to be 3 weeks ago before the drama started. I said there would be some drama with the bright, shiny object called the SAVE Act. I said that was going to get stripped off and you were going to get a clean CR. I also predicted this would fall right before Christmas. And I believe this does fall on December 20th. Now, why have we picked December 20th? Because it's the same reason we always have December 20th. Everybody up here is human. There are no AIs or robots in Congress. And when you get to December 20th, you're 5 days from Christmas. You're 4 days from Christmas Eve. And you desperately want to be there with your family. So this is when the leadership here has the maximum influence. And again, I'm talking to the Democrats and the Republicans because you've seen it on the Democrat side of the aisle. They love to pick the week before Christmas for this showdown because you can smell the jet fuel fumes over at DCA. It smells like Christmas, that you're going to get to go home and open presents. I've been in HC5 when literally the Speaker of the House, not the Speaker we have now, walks in and says, if you vote for this, you can go home and unwrap presents with your kids. And if you don't vote for this, you're going to spend Christmas here with Nancy Pelosi. And then the chant starts, vote, 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 vote. Literally, people get enthusiastic to vote for something that they haven't read. So let me predict what we're not going to do on December 20th before I take a guess at what we're going to do. What we're not going to do, we're not going to do 12 separate bills. We are not going to spend this time. We've got a few months between now and December 20th. We could go back to working on appropriations bills. We are not going to do this. This sucker, whatever happens on December 20th, whether it's another CR to punt, to kick the can down the road for 3 more months, or whether it's an omnibus that funds all of government with one bill, it's going to be written behind closed doors. And every lobbyist in this town is going to try to attach their little thing to this bill. This train is leaving the station on December 20th. It's the only one that we know is going to pass. They call it up here must pass legislation. So everybody's going to try and get their little thing on this bill, whatever it is on December 20th, whether it's another continuing resolution or another omnibus. It's not even really a prediction that I'm making. I'm just telling you what has happened for 12 years, regardless of whether Democrats are in charge or Republicans are in charge. There may be a little twist. We may do half of a CR, it'll be a whole CR, and half of it'll end in February, and half of it'll end in April, and they'll convince you they got something more clever this year than they had last year. But it's going to be the same old thing, warmed over, written behind closed doors, rolled out here. We're not going to have time to read this thing.
All right,
That's
go
all.
ahead, Dawson. So I was driving up, like I said, to Bemidji, and one of the very few Democrat properties up there, or that identified as a Democrat because they had signs. I don't even think they had a Harris sign on there, but it said, the number one cause of inflation, corporate greed. I'm just like, yeah, because the Democrats are getting big corporations. Have you ever looked at their FTC filings? So I'm just like, I think this person believes it. And I actually think a lot of people believe it. And it's like, you know what the number one cause of inflation is? Printing money out of thin air to bail out Washington, D.C., which is what we're going to continue doing. That's why I'm so bearish on the future prosperity of the American government, because they've screwed up so much. They got $35 trillion in debt. They continue to run these massive budget deficits, and there's no fix in sight. And the Republicans are in charge, and they don't give you 12 appropriation bills. They give you one gigantic omnibus bill. And in this case, it happens every Christmas. He says, we've seen this play out so many times. And by the way, the Republicans will say, now's not the time. Trump just got elected. We can't have this fall on Trump. Now's not the time. There's an important election coming up. We can't, they're always going to have the excuse.
And Christmas with Nancy Pelosi is quite the threat.
That is a threat. Yeah,
That's
fair
quite
enough.
the threat.
But if you have to do something to save America's financial prosperity, you might as well have Christmas with Nancy Pelosi. But it's the same old shit every single time. It's the biggest issue. What are you pointing at there?
MN cat burglar. That's a new one.
Oh, yeah. I think maybe it is new.
So, yeah,
Next
Kaplerger asked, Tom, will you fight with Massie and take down the corrupt politicians in D.C.?
And it would be delightful if I could just grab them and take them down. But what we need to do is to work on getting the structure so that these omnibus bills, I mean, we all know this is a problem. We all know it catches so much extra stuff that's totally unnecessary, totally wasteful, and we're still not doing the job that we're supposed to do. If they're supposed to budget, then let's budget. I see a lot of fluff. I think Elon Musk would be great if he could go in there and wreak some efficiency. But
yeah, well, I hope he gets to be the chair of the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge.
I mean, that's as good an answer as I guess I've heard. I mean, it's like, will you fight with Massie to take down the corrupt politicians? Well, Massie said it right there. It doesn't matter if it's Republicans in charge or Democrats in charge. They do the same thing. They pass the same thing. And that's what I think is not ringing true with a lot of these Republican activists in CD2. They say, oh, my God, I know that there's many, many issues with the Republican candidate. He wasn't from here. He's been dishonest, whatever else. But we got to vote for him because otherwise we'll have a Democrat. And you see it's like in 2017, Republican majority Congress, second largest spending bill in the history of America. And they passed gun control. They had fixed nicks in there, right? And so it's like Republican majority passes gun control, the second largest spending bill in the history of the country. And, you have Republicans had the Rules Committee, right? Republicans pushed to the floor with no amendments, and Massie was trying to fight that back in 2017. Allow amendments, get rid of fixed nicks, right? And now, same thing. I mean, Massie's telling it like it is. It doesn't matter if the Republicans are in charge, Democrats are in charge. I mean, look at this. We're funding the Ukraine right now. Who's in charge of Congress, which controls the purse strings? Republicans. And yet we've given $100 billion or so to Ukraine while the Republicans have had a majority, right? So that doesn't hold water with me. They're not hitting me with this, you better vote for Joe Tayrab or else we'll have a Democrat. It's like, it's not going to probably be the majority seat anyway, but if it is, tell me how this is any different. Right now we're in the majority and we're doing everything we shouldn't, right?
Right. One other thing to think about with this continuing resolution is that Emmer is the whip, and he is going to be whipping Republican votes to vote for this continuing resolution. And the fact that Emmer's clear choice in this race is Joe Tayrab, are we supposed to think that Joe Tayrab is going to go in there and give a similar answer that Tom gave, that he would oppose these omnibus, unconstitutional continuing resolutions? I get the feeling that Tayrab would be a vote with Emmer.
Okay, but I'm going to push back on you. Hold on one second. Dawson, pull up the A3. I'm going to push back on you just a little bit there, Jesse.
Okay.
Go to the A3. I don't think it's fair to always criticize Tom Emmer's choice in candidates. Let's go ahead and play the A3 real quick.
I'm Emmer. I'm here to support the conservative choice for the Minnesota House of Representatives in this district. It's Paul Tushy. He's running against a guy who's been in office for the last 10 years. Joe Atkins voted in favor of growing government. Paul Tushy, he believes that you can't grow government any longer at the expense of the citizens that it's supposed to be serving. If you live in Northern Egan, Inver Grove Heights, Mendota Heights, Heights or Sunfish Lake. Vote for Paul Tushy on November 6th. Thanks.
I'm Paul Tushy, and I approve this message.
You know,
my goal is to play that
I
probably
can't
another
disagree
50
with-
times.
That's one I can't disagree with. I have to agree with that endorsement by Emmer. That was a fine endorsement, if there ever was one. But yeah, I mean, that's a right. He's literally in charge right now, and yeah, of course, that's why that's another thing of voters in the 2nd district, like myself, who's like, there's all this pressure. Well, you better support this Republican, even if he's corrupt, even if he's wasn't the endorsed candidate and stuff. We have to support him. It's like, if you do that right now, we're looking at Congress and saying, even with the Republican majority, we're not seeing limited government. We have the same corruption, the same Ukraine money, the same gun control, right? Same growth in spending, same inflation. So we need to change this. Well, how are we going to change it? You know how we absolutely won't change it? If we endorse a candidate, if there's a good candidate in the race and Emmer says, oh, this guy might not go toe the line, well, we better get rid of him and put somebody else in there from outside and just, you know what I mean, cramming in somebody who's a yes man for the Washington establishment and then making sure you guys better vote for him. If everybody falls in line and votes for him, they say, oh, great, we can do this. If anybody ever steps up, a Massie type, a Thomas Massie, anybody steps up to run as a Republican ever in CD2, we'll just get rid of them and put somebody else in there that's a yes man for the Washington establishment, and the people are going to fall in line and vote for them. Or if we don't fall in line, they'll say, holy cow, I guess we can't do that. We can't just expect that we can throw somebody in there and everybody's going to fall in line. Because I mean, if we're not having success now with the majority, what good is it just to get a bunch of majority in there of the corrupt yes men for Emmer and the Washington establishment?
Right. Let's go to this last.